welcome back to my channel. My name is Emily and I am the maker behind Magnus Make Crochet. In today's video, we are going to be recapping my best market yet. For anyone new here, this is the third video in a 4-part series looking back on my first year selling plushies at local markets as I start to prepare for my second market season, which is starting in September. But before we get started, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, and you can also follow me on Instagram and TikTok at the links in the description below. And with that said, let's begin. If you saw last week's video where I recapped my second market, this market was a very similar setup to that one. It was more of a festival-like atmosphere than a traditional craft market. In addition to, I'd say about 150 craft vendors, there were also tons of food trucks, live music, kids activities, and that included like carnival style rides as well. So this was a very big fair. This is another local market for me, so I had attended this fair myself as a patron for years at this point, and I knew it was an extremely popular fair with tons of foot traffic. Though, as you will see in this video, I still seriously underestimated just how much foot traffic there would be. So in total, I brought 111 plushies to this market, which were valued at $2,186. I will have all the pattern information included in the description below as well, just in case you want to make any of these plushies for your own markets. So for a full inventory breakdown of everything that I brought to this market, I had 4 baby dragons, and these were priced at $25 each. Now, if you haven't seen my first couple market recap videos, I severely underpriced myself this first market season. My pricing was not reflective of the amount of time and effort that went into making these plushies, particularly since I tend not to use a lot of the more traditional no-sew market makes. And that's not because there's anything wrong with those patterns. They're all really cute. I just personally enjoy making the patterns that involve a little bit more sewing. As annoying as sewing can be, I just really like that detailed look you can get from the highly sewing intensive patterns. And because that's what I enjoy crocheting, that's ultimately the plushies that come to my markets with me. But the downside of that is they are more labor intensive and they do take much more time to make up. So one thing that I did throughout the course of these 3 markets was I did try and price adjust, and these baby dragons are an example of that. They were originally priced at $20 for my first 2 markets, and I increased that to $25 for this market. There is just a ton of sewing involved in making these baby dragons. You have to sew on all the spikes, the tail, the wings, the ears, and all of the paws. Honestly, $25 is still not enough, but it's better than the original $20s, so I'm just gonna take it as a win, and I will make better pricing adjustments going into this second market season. Now, back to our inventory breakdown. I also had 3 beluga whales, and these were priced at $20. 4 blossom turtles, priced at $30. And I also had one, what I called a large blossom turtle, and that really looked exactly like these blossom turtles. It was using the pink blossom yarn, and I believe it had white flower petals. But aside from that, it looked exactly like these turtles do. It was just much larger than they were, and that wasn't intentional. It was actually the first blossom turtle I ever made, and I think my tension was just looser back then than it currently is. So I didn't put it out for my first 2 markets just because it looked so different than these turtles did. But this is my last market of that season, and I was really trying to get as much inventory out of my apartment as possible because I have just a small 1-bedroom apartment, and you never know what people are going to be interested in. So I figured I would just put it out on the table and see what happens. And I priced him at $35 just because he did involve a little bit more yarn than the other Blossom Turtles did. I also brought 2 clownfish, priced at $15, 4 crabs, also priced at $15, 4 elephants, priced at $25, 1 flamingo, priced at $20, 2 fox, priced at $20, 4 hippo, also again priced at $20, 1 jumbo dragon, priced at $75. And if you've been watching all of my market videos, it was the purple dragon that remains. We sold our green jumbo dragon at my second market. I also had 1 jumbo flamingo, priced at $45, 1 jumbo turtle, also priced at $45, 2 lions, priced at $25, 4 monkeys, priced at $25, 3 owls, priced at $20, 1 penguin, and these were also priced at $20, 2 polar bears, and I priced these at $25. I also brought 1 Edward the Elephant, and that's just the name that the pattern designer gave him. I priced him at $20, and unfortunately I don't have a picture of him, but he was the first pattern that I ever made. So I can show that elephant to you. So this is the Edward the Elephant pattern, and so the elephant that I brought to this market looked very similar to him, just hopefully a little bit better since this was my first ever attempt at crocheting amigurumi, and I would hope, fingers crossed, you'd think that I've improved since. But anyway, this is the Edward the Elephant pattern, and the one that I brought was in like a purple speckled colored yarn. So there's a little bit more color going on there, but this is what Edward looks like, and I had 1 of him priced at $20. I also brought 11 rays, and these were priced at $18. I brought 1 bunny rabbit, also priced at $18. This is another where I unfortunately don't have a picture of them, but they're from the same pattern book that the Edward the Elephant pattern is in, so it looks very similar to him, just in rabbit form. And this rabbit was much smaller than the elephant that I just showed you. It was more like Beanie Baby size, if you all remember Beanie Babies back in the day. And that was because I used the, I think it's called Flex yarn from Michaels, which is like a size 3, I think maybe. I'll put the name on the screen, but I used that yarn for him, so he came out much smaller. I also brought 4 seals, priced at $18, 3 sharks, also priced at $18, 3 sloths, priced at $20, 5 speckled turtles, priced at $25, 3 tigers, priced at $25, and 4 whales, priced also at $25. And I had 3 of this blue speckled kind of whale, and then I had 1 orca whale. And I also brought a number of mini plushies to this market, which is something I started at my last market. And all of the minis that I'm about to talk about were priced at either $10 or I offered a discount if you bought 3. If you bought 3 mini plushies, then you got them for $24. So I had 2 mini bees, 2 mini brachiosauruses, and I should have looked up if I was pronouncing that correctly last video because I now have to pronounce it again. 5 mini elephants, 3 mini giraffes, 2 mini monkeys, 3 mini polar bears, 2 mini rays, and I also had keychains left over from last market that I brought to this market. I had 2 koala keychains, and these were priced at $8. 2 monkey keychains, also priced at $8. And 1 unicorn keychain, priced at $8. So I also brought a new product to this market, and that was some loveys from the Mama Made Minis pattern book. I had 2 dino loveys, and these were priced at $18 each. And this is another product where I don't unfortunately have a picture to show you guys, but I have been market prepping for my upcoming market in September, and I did make some dino loveys for it, so I can show you one of those. So this is the dino lovey that I'm talking about, and again, I priced him at $18. Don't think it's working quite as well as the lovely pictures that I pop up next to me, but hopefully you can get the gist of what he looked like. I also brought 2 elephant loveys, again priced at $18. This is another where I don't have a picture, but I have one done for my new market season, so this is what the elephant loveys looked like. I don't have eyes on them yet because I'm still finishing them, but this is what they were. I also brought 2 lamb loveys, and these are priced at $18. And I do have a picture of these from one that I made for my aunt. I also brought 2 panda loveys, also priced at $18. Unfortunately for these ones, I don't have a picture, and I haven't gotten to make the panda loveys yet, so I don't have any to show you, but they are from the Mama Made Minis pattern book if you want to kind of see what they look like. And definitely check out my future market recap videos where I will 100% have photos of these loveys. And the last item that I brought was 1 dragon lovey, priced at $18. And she didn't sell, so I do have her here with me. This is what she looked like. She's got some pink wings on the back. And I really wasn't personally a fan of how this dragon lovey came out. I don't know, I think it was the speckled yarn that I picked. I just don't feel like it worked really well. And so I wasn't going to bring this particular lovey to this market, but my friend really thought she was cute and she thought that I should put her out, and so I did. But as you can see, she didn't sell. So I will be bringing her to my next market in September, and we'll have to see how she does at that one. So again, that's a total of 111 plushies, which were valued at $2,186. So the popularity of this market was insane. People were already there shopping well before the market was scheduled to open. So I was trying to check people out while also setting up my booth, and it did not stop from there. So I really just had to hit the ground running, and there was literally no time to stop and take any photos or videos of my final booth setup. And there was also like almost no time throughout the course of the entire market where there weren't tons of people in the booth to even be able to attempt to take any photos or videos. But this is my typical booth setup, and it's very similar to what my booth looked like at this particular market. I don't think I've mentioned this before, but I do plan to do a future video where I talk about everything that I use for my booth setup and where I purchased it all from. So if you are curious about that, I promise it is coming. Guys, I thought my first market was windy, but it was nothing compared to the wind at this market. The plushies attempted to make a break for it so many times. And even my jumbo dragon, which is normally pretty secure on top of these wooden crates, tumbled to the ground multiple times. So that part of the market was very stressful. Like I mentioned before, this market was also packed, and I mean packed. There was almost no point during the entire market where my booth wasn't literally mobbed. From even before I was fully set up until the end of the day, it was non-stop. There was almost no room for people to move around the booth. It was just that crowded. And a lot of times the line to check out was even extending outside of the tent. Thankfully, my mom is always with me when I do these markets. She is such a huge help. I think it was around like 3 in the afternoon at this market where we both realized that we hadn't ate anything all day. And so she went to the food trucks to get us something to eat. And I literally could not wait for her to get back, guys. Having to check everyone out, bag all the items, keep records of everything that was selling, and still be able to answer questions for people who were looking around the booth all on my own was so hard. So huge shout out to my mom, because I could definitely not do any of my markets without her, but specifically I could never have done this market without her. It was just way too crowded. She also even had to cover for me a couple times just so I could go to the bathroom. So she really had to work pretty hard at this market. I highly recommend bringing someone with you to your markets to help out if you're able to, because it can just be such a huge stress relief to know that you have someone there who can cover for you, or at the very least who can watch your booth and especially watch your cash box when you have to step away for a second. I vastly underestimated just how popular this event was going to be. I don't know if I remembered to mention it earlier, but this was supposed to be a 2-day market, but I ended up basically selling out that first day. I think I maybe had 10, maybe 15 plushies left by the end of day 1. I should have done that calculation ahead of time, but maybe Ed and Emily can put it on the screen. I really had to keep adjusting my booth setup throughout the course of the day. By the afternoon, I had to completely take down one of the tables, and even doing that, the remaining tables still looked pretty sparse. By the end of the day, it was becoming very clear that I was just not going to have enough inventory to come back for a second day. I even asked some of the vendor friends that I had made at this event what they would do, and they looked at what I had left over and they said, well, it was up to me. They probably wouldn't come back the second day, that it would just not be worth it. So I did end up packing my booth up after the first day. We were exhausted, and given how the first day had gone, we probably would have only been there that second day for maybe a couple hours at most. And we then would have had to sit there for the rest of the day without any products, or we would have had to leave and come back hours later to then pack up the booth. So I just decided that it was easier to pack up at that point and to take a day to kind of recover and rest before I had to go back to work on Monday. And now for the results. And since we basically sold out that first day, I won't have my usual day 1 breakdown versus day 2 breakdown. This is just gonna be the total results. So we sold 3 baby dragons, 2 blossom turtles, and we also sold that large pink blossom turtle I mentioned as well, 2 clownfish, 4 crabs, 3 elephants, 1 flamingo, 1 fox, 3 hippos, and I just have to say I am so glad to see the elephants and the hippos finally getting some love. I brought them to all 3 markets. I brought 4 of each to all 3 markets, and they didn't sell at the first 2 markets, so I was so excited that they finally found their forever homes at this 3rd market. We also sold our 2nd and final jumbo dragon. And this was really cute. This was a mother and daughter who came and looked around the booth, and they really fell in love with this dragon, but they ultimately walked away, and they were gone for a long time, like long enough that I assumed they left the fair, but they eventually came back and bought the dragon, and the daughter was so excited. I think it was probably an early Christmas present for her, if I remember correctly, but the purple dragon has now joined the green dragon in finding her forever home. We also sold our jumbo flamingo, as well as our jumbo turtle. So all our jumbo plushies ended up selling, which is so exciting. We sold 3 monkeys, 3 owls, 1 penguin, 2 polar bears. We sold the 1 Edward the elephant that I mentioned earlier, and this was actually my first sale of the day, and it was while my booth was still very much not set up, so it was one of the few plushies that I had already put on the tables, and he got scooped up really fast. We also sold that 1 bunny rabbit that I talked about that was kind of like a Beanie Baby. And it just goes to show that even if you don't particularly think a plushie came out great, put it out on your table and see what happens, because I was not 100% sold on this rabbit, but this little girl ultimately fell completely in love with him, and he's now found his forever home. We also sold 11 rays, 4 seals, 3 sharks, 2 sloths, and this is another one that I'm so excited finally got some love. The sloths are one of my favorites, and I just think they look so cute hanging on this little jewelry tree. And I was so outraged after my first market where nobody bought them. Like, people commented on them constantly, but then nobody ended up purchasing them. And I was telling my cousin about that, and she loved them, and so she wanted one, and so I just gave her one of the sloths, and she has hung her sloth on her curtain rod. And ever since she did that, the sloths have been selling. I sold 1 at my last market, and ultimately we sold 2 at this market. So clearly I just needed my cousin to get the ball rolling. We also sold 5 speckled turtles, 1 tiger, 2 whales, one of which was the blue speckled whale and the other was the orca whale, 2 mini bees, 2 mini brachiosauruses, 5 mini elephants, 3 mini giraffes, 3 mini polar bears, 2 mini rays, 2 koala keychains, 2 monkey keychains, 1 unicorn keychain, 1 dino lovey, 2 elephant loveys, 2 lamb loveys, and 2 panda loveys. So that's a total of 93 plushies sold. Okay, so Eddie and Emily is actually jumping on here with the final results for this market, because even though this is one of the few sections that I actually have written out on my phone and am usually reading from, I still managed to say it wrong when I did my initial filming. So I am here to give you the actual final results for this market. At this market, we sold 93 plushies, which generated $1,848.63 in sales. I paid $108.74 in sales tax, $32.21 in credit card fees. My booth fee was $300, and that gives us a grand total profit of $1,407.68 for this market. So this was by far my best market yet. I made nearly double the profit I made at my first ever market, and over $500 more in profit than I did at my second market. But I was definitely unprepared for just how busy this market was going to be. And that was bound to happen at some point. This was my first year selling plushies at markets. I only had those first 2 markets to judge inventory needs by, and between 100 and 150 plushies had been more than enough inventory at those 2 prior markets. I did expect that this market would be pretty popular. I think I mentioned before that I attended this fair for years as just like an ordinary patron, but that was also the case for my last market too. And at least from a non-vendor perspective, I never saw that dramatic of a difference in attendance between the 2 events. This market also takes place pretty late into the fall in what's typically a sort of beachy touristy area. And so I just didn't envision that this market would be as busy as it was. But at least I know now that if I ever decide I want to do this market in the future, I should bring double my typical inventory so that I can make sure that I have enough product to stay both days and really take full advantage of just how popular this fair is. I'm not doing this market again this year. I did want to sign up for it, especially given just how popular of an event it is and how well I did at it. But the application came out during my really busy work season. I ended up applying a few days after the application opened, and so they were already maxed out on crochet artists, unfortunately. Crochet, and specifically amigurumi, is definitely becoming more and more popular at markets, even in just this past year alone. So you definitely want to make sure that you apply right when the application opens if you want to ensure that you get a spot at the market you're hoping to be a vendor at. For me, as someone who works 2 jobs and runs a crochet business on top of that, it's not always feasible for me to get my applications in right away, and so unfortunately that does mean that sometimes I miss out. I'm honestly not too disappointed though. While I'm obviously really happy with the results from this market and would have loved to have those same results again, it was really stressful. I'm still finding my groove at markets, and so being go, go, go all day long without really having time to breathe was definitely a lot for me. Everyone was so nice though and very patient. I was having to answer people's questions while checking other people out, and the line was often very long, so people were having to wait longer than you would expect to at a local market. But people were so gracious about that, and no one seemed to mind at all. I am very grateful to everyone who stopped by the booth, whether they bought a plushie or not. Even with how busy the market was, I was still able to have nice conversations with people, and it was just a really strong way to end my first ever market season. Since I basically sold out at this market, it's a little hard to pick best sellers this time around, but I have gone through my list and I picked out the plushies that I brought the most of to this market that subsequently sold out. So my best sellers for this market were my rays, my speckled turtles, my minis, my keychains, and my loveys, which were a new product. I also sold out of crabs and seals, but I only brought 4 of each of those, and I brought a lot more of these bestsellers here, so that's why they made the list and the seals and crabs didn't. Some of what has been my bestsellers in the past, like my baby dragons and my penguins, I just didn't have a lot of at this market. They're both just very labor-intensive products, and there was a very quick turnaround time between my last market and this one, so I just didn't have the capacity to make a lot of them. But it will be very interesting to see if they end up making a comeback in my upcoming market season when I'm back to having a decent amount of them. So that's all for today's video. Thank you all so much for joining me in recapping my best and most recent market to date. If you had a particular favorite plushie that I brought to this market, definitely let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel. You can also follow me on Instagram and TikTok at the links in the description. In next week's video, we are going to be reflecting on these past 3 markets and my first market season overall, talking about things like what went well, what I learned, and what I hope to change coming into my second market season. That market season is starting in just a few weeks, and I am already so far behind schedule. So definitely stay tuned for some market prep content as well. Until next time, thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.